Where you perform matters more than how good you are. And the type of venues that you perform at consistently will dictate the type of bookings and shows that you'll get in the future. So if you're wondering why it can be difficult to break out of bars or small venues, I'm going to show you some realizations that took me years to recognize. This is the Johnny Fiacconi podcast, where I go deeper into the topics I chat about on my channels. If this episode resonates with you, please subscribe and share it with someone else who might get something from it too. It's taken me a long time to realize this, but I truly feel like the venues people constantly see you performing at will dictate how they perceive you. Like, even think about your friends. Like, you're always posting at bars. Maybe you're playing other events, but the things they see online are like just bars. Then you're a bar band. If people see you busking on the streets all the time, then you're a busker. It doesn't really matter what you are actually doing. It's what people perceive you to be doing, and that is based on what you're sharing online. So it's taken me a long time to realize this, and it's from personal experience. Like, my band used to be seen playing a lot of bars. We would share bar content, and it's like people thought we were a bar band. When venues wanted to reach out to us, when private events wanted to reach out to us, when even working with agents are trying to pitch our band, they would just look online, they would see our show listing, see what kind of venues we're playing, and they'd be like, oh, this is a bar band. Even though we were doing bigger events, the majority of the content we were sharing was bar content, and that's how people painted our band. You can tell yourself that you're not that, but that really dictates what kind of band you are. And the thing is, if your friends and family perceive you at that level, what do you think people in the industry are perceiving you as? Imagine like bookers, imagine agents, imagine venue owners, imagine event planners. If they reach out to you and they see you playing at bars, they're going to be expecting bar level prices. And this is something that I experienced firsthand with my band, and it took me years to really recognize what was happening and the patterns that just kept coming up. My band is originally from Mississauga, Canada, which is right next to Toronto. And we formed the band starting in bars, and we worked our way up, and it took about 10 years to get to the point where we were playing theaters. We had just got off of an East Coast Canada theater tour, the first one we ever did, playing in big crowds for us. That was like 500 to 700 seat theaters. And right after that, COVID happened, so we got locked up. At the end of COVID, we had a bit of a lineup change, and we decided, like, hey, we had always talked about moving to California. We're like, let's do it. Let's double down on the band and make the move. So we packed up our lives, and we all drove down to California, to Palm Springs, which is where I am right now. And what happened there is that coming down here, we went from doing theaters in Canada to now like starting from scratch, even though the band had been together for years. So we were like busking the first week we were down here, and we were playing a lot of bars. And that was a very humbling experience because, well, first of all, I always liked playing bars, but like going from making thousands of dollars a show to now like asking for tips was a very humbling experience, but it was great because this is how I gained the insight of what I'm talking about right now. People were seeing us on the street busking. They were seeing us at bars and pubs, and then people would go to book us from seeing us at those places, and they would be expecting bar or busker level pricing. Like people, the opportunities that would come to us would always be someone like just seeing us on the street and being like, oh, I'm doing a backyard party. Are you available on this date and what do you charge? And we're just thinking like, prior to COVID, it's like, yeah, backyard party, like at least $2,500, like at least, usually $4,500. That's where we were at before COVID. So we'd say like 2,500, like, whoa, this is just like a small little birthday, And then when we were playing at bars, we would get people reaching out as well. And they'd be like, hey, there's like the local Legion in town. Do you want to play that event? And it's just like, and I love Legions. They're great shows, but it's just like they don't pay well, and it's like you might get a little more than a bar, but it's like $700, and we're just like $700. Is that what this move to California has resulted in? Is that the competition that we're dealing with? There's just so many bands. How are we going to start making the money we used to make in Canada and more? And it was a result of how we were positioning ourselves, of how people were perceiving us down here in California. We were sharing content that was us like grinding again, doing the busking on the street, playing bars, taking any opportunity we had just to stay afloat, just to pay for the rent because we all live together. And that was essentially harming us. Now, we had to do that out of necessity because we moved our lives down here. We needed money. So we were taking anything. And that's why I gained this insight, because I think a lot of bands are at that level. It's like you're trying to make a living doing music. So you have to take anything you can get. But in taking anything you can get, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot, because it's usually lower hanging fruit. And people are associating you with that level, even though you want to go beyond that. So it gets very interesting. And it's funny because we had a manager who used to tell us all the time, he was trying to get us, he was the guy who got us into theaters. And he would tell us, like, guys, I would start limiting the types of content you're sharing online. Like, you can't be sharing bar or club footage. It's hard for me to pitch to theaters. And we would be like, well, what are we going to share then? And he was just like, look, it's doing you more harm than good. I know you're playing these venues, but I'm trying to pitch you guys as a theater act. And they're going online and being like, well, this is a bar band. And it took me, once again, a long time to realize that, because once we moved down here, I just started realizing that the opportunities we were getting were all aligned with the type of gigs that we were sharing online, that we were posting about. So as we started landing on our feet here in California, we started noticing this thing. So we had to start limiting the amount of bars that we played. We would still play them kind of at first, but we would share less content about them. And we started sharing more content as we started doing the city summer concert theories, or the smaller theaters that we started getting into. But that was in the public eye. And this is the next layer to it, is that we still took other gigs privately that were smaller. So we would do some backyard parties, or there'd be like a 50th birthday party that someone would have at their house. And the thing is, online, now we looked like we were playing theaters and playing to all of these city like concert goers. And there was big crowds that we were sharing. But behind closed doors, it's like people would see us at a backyard party to 50 people. And once again, we dealt with the same thing. Like, people would come up to us and be like, hey, can I get a card? I've got like a wedding anniversary coming up and we're doing it at this like bar in town. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh, but we don't really charge those rates. Even if the person at that event paid us good rates, it's like, I know that person is seeing us in a backyard on the floor, like no stage, with our gear. We're setting it all up. And I know they're probably thinking like, oh, this band charges like $1,000, which isn't the case. Like, I specifically remember one event, we got paid $4,500 to do their backyard party. It was a surprise birthday party. And we got like offers from people who saw us there, and we would throw out that exact same quote, and they'd be like, whoa, okay, I was way off. Sorry, that was like way out of my budget. And I would be like, yeah, see, like we can't even be doing these gigs because they're like one-offs that pay okay. Like, that was worth our time like 2 years ago. But right now it's actually shooting us in the foot once again, because you can't even really get a legitimate opportunity out of it, or at least an opportunity at the level you want to be at. And I'm not knocking, like, that paid really well, but we're just constantly striving to get to the next level. And it gets really interesting because aside from just the perception of people seeing you, it's like you could literally take our show that we are now doing at theaters often. We're playing theaters all over the country. You could take that exact show, exactly what we do, like note for note, we could tell the same stories. We could put that into a bar tomorrow, and like we would get paid $400. It doesn't even matter what we're doing. You know, people would look at that. It's just the environment in which you are playing. Like, people would be like, oh, that's a really, really tight band. They might question, like, why are you playing a bar? But it doesn't matter. Like, if we went into a bar tomorrow, we would get bar pay for the same type of show that we are doing at a theater. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to think that. And once you realize that, you realize, like, why shouldn't we be putting this show that is great on the highest stage possible? Because what happens is this, like, imagine you went to go see a theater band and there was like a ton of people there, They put on a great show. If you even want it, first of all, would you even consider hiring them for one of your events? I mean, if you're a person like me, maybe I'm getting married and I'd be like, oh, it would be so cool to have that band at my event. But like immediately I would be thinking, if I'm seeing them at a theater, 700 people, I'd be like, I wonder how much they would cost. Like I would assume that they would probably be 10 to 20 grand. Like if I'm seeing them at a show and it's packed and they've got like a tight show with visuals, they're looking good, they've got a crew, I wouldn't even entertain the idea. And if I did, I'd be like, how much are they costing? Like, I probably got to fork out 20 grand. Now, imagine you saw that exact same band doing that exact same show at a bar. You'd be like, oh, I got to get them for my wedding. They're probably going to be like, oh, maybe like 4 grand. Maybe I can get them for like 3 grand. Like, that's what you would legitimately be thinking. Or am I crazy? Because that's what I would do. It's all about the frame in which you experience that band. So, like thinking about that from people in the music business, if you have goals, if you want to take your band to the next level, it's really important to start curating what you're sharing online, curating even the types of gigs that you get, what your band and your brand is becoming associated with. If you're playing a lot of backyard venues, then you're going to be associated as like a backyard, cool, fun band. And once again, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to ask yourself, if you took that show and it were on a bigger stage and you can be making like 3 to 5 times the amount of money, like would that interest you? Would that be better for you? Is that a kind of goal that you want to strive towards? Because if so, A, you could totally do that with intention, and B, you're going to have to start limiting the types of gigs like that, the backyard gigs, the bar gigs, some of the smaller, like even with my band, we've done 2 years in a row where we did all of the city summer concert series in LA. Like we were doing like sometimes 5 times a week because some cities have Monday summer concert series. Then you'd go to the next one that does their series on Tuesday. So we were just playing these things. And it just got to the point where even that, now that we're really getting theater shows, if you look at the footage and the content that we shared from the city concert series, it just looks like a step down. Not that I'm knocking those gigs. It just doesn't align with the perception of a theater and performing arts center band. It's like we're playing, to people who are there on lawn chairs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once again, it's all about perception. Like imagine a theater booker looking at that and they're going to be like, oh, they're doing like summer concert series. Okay. And they know what kind of level that's at. They know what kind of pay that's at. A summer concert series, like at a smaller town, could pay like, 2,500. It could pay up to maybe 4 grand. But when you're doing a theater asking for 10 grand, they're going to be like, oh, they're playing all these summer concert series. Why am I giving them 10 grand? It's different if you're coming in on a fly-in or something, but it's just people are doing mental math, especially people in the business. They are going to your profile, going to your website, and they're just quickly like poking around and they're getting a sense of what kind of band you are. Now, imagine you're trying to get into theaters. There's a lot of bands that message me, how do you get into theaters? How do you get on cruise boats? It's like the question is, if I go to your website, I'm not even a cruise booker or a theater booker or a summer concert series booker, but if I went on your website right now and I looked at your show listings, what kind of venues would I see you playing? Would I see you playing a lot? And what types of venues are they? If you have nothing listed there, like that would tell me something. I'd be like, why are they reaching out to theaters? They're not even doing anything. If you have a ton of gigs and they're all bars, I would be like, well, they're a bar band. Like, how are they going to bring anyone out to a theater? And if I'm a city concert person, I might be like, oh, they're playing a lot in this area already. Why am I going to book them for my city concert series that's right down the road if they're playing all the time? So there's a lot of things to consider. It's really important to put yourself in the shoes of a booker. But now imagine if I went to your website and you're playing all of these theaters across the country. I'm going to be like, oh, this is a theater band. This makes sense. I get why they're asking this price. This is what they do. So once again, it's taken me a very, very long time to understand this, but it's really important to curate what kind of content you're sharing online and the types of gigs that you're actually taking. Because if anyone actually starts to investigate in your band, they're going to be able to tell what gigs you're doing. And like I said, we started to limit the public gigs, like doing bars and all of that. And we were still taking these smaller time, like private and corporate events. And even that, people were starting to figure that out. Like the scene can be small. You know what I mean? Like people start to figure out. As a side note, a cool line I like to use whenever we would cut someone a deal or do a favor or do a small gig, I would give them a quote and I would just tell them this. I would say, hey, All I ask is that you keep this quote fairly private because it's significantly lower than we normally charge. I know we're doing a gig for you. Just if someone asks, please at least quote them at this level. And that's kind of a good way where if you're doing someone a favor, like they know what your normal rate is, they feel like they're getting a discount. And if anyone were to ask them how much you pay that band, they're going to say, oh, they charge this. So that's like a good little side note. And I gotta say, like, truthfully, once we started limiting the bar posts that we were sharing online, the club photos, us even being on just a small elevated stage, we stopped sharing that and we started sharing more content from like the theater shows. Our stock really started to rise. We started getting more intentional with the types of gigs we wanted to do because we started seeing like, oh, all of our stuff, we're sharing us playing at these big theaters with big crowd shots at the end of the show. And we're like, oh, now we can start doubling down on this. Like, we almost felt weird, like sharing a photo from a theater that we did last week. And then we played a bar the next week. And we were just like, we can't share this bar photo. Like, people think we're a theater band now. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it felt natural to not want to share that bar photo or that bar clip. It just didn't click like in my mind. I was like, well, people are seeing us just playing, like coming off of this tour where we did like 2 theater shows. And now the next week we're back here in California, our home base, and we played some like small club and we're going to share a photo of that. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense in my mind, meaning it's not going to make sense in a booker's mind or in a manager's mind or in a booking agent's mind. It's all tied together. And like I said, it's taken me years to start seeing these patterns, but they're there. And people tried to tell us, and we'd be like, well, what are we going to share? We're doing bars, you know? And they're like, well, you got to limit it. And I'm like, well, yeah, we got to pay the bills though. And it's like, you got to find a way to make it work, because if you're always just taking the low hanging fruit just to get by, you're never going to be able to get to the next level. And not everyone wants to get to a next level, but like I said, I get so many people messaging me in my DMs, how do you get to the next level? I'm like, do you want to really know? Because it's going to take you like giving up and saying no to a lot of the gigs that you are comfortable with, a lot of the gigs that pay your bills if you're a full-time musician, and it's very uncomfortable. And we're going through that again right now, because as we get more into the theaters and performing arts centers, now we're going to these conferences where we're spending money to be there to showcase in front of theater buyers who are choosing their talent for the years. And as we do that, we're investing, like we just spent 11 grand to go to New York to showcase at APAP to hopefully get more theater shows, which we should, we always have. But like once you do that, what we're sharing online, yeah, it becomes a little fragile, because you know people saw us there. They're going to go to our social media. They're going to go to our website, and everything has to line up. It's got to make sense. They've got to go to our page and see us with the crowd shot at a theater, see our upcoming dates that we're playing all over the country doing theaters. They've got to be like, this is a theater band. They're performing well. They're social proof. I want them at my theater. And someone out there might be like, yeah, well, that's tough. You're doing theaters. Like it's a chicken and the egg thing. All I would say is this: your actionable task is to, first of all, decide and set a goal as to what level you want your band to be at. From there, you can start plotting a course. You can set like a roadmap of what you want to do. And from there, you're going to start leveraging those bigger gigs. So you will get some opportunity to play on a big stage, like a festival. Maybe you even get to open for someone at a theater, or a small theater takes a chance on you and you get to play at a theater. Once you get those opportunities, you have to have someone there filming your show and taking as many pictures as possible. And you have to repurpose that. That is going to be your bait to get more of that kind of show. And if you're really smart, I mean, something you can do that we've done is that if there's an intermission at a theater, you could literally do a wardrobe change and then get photos and videos from the second set. And that's a great way for it to look like you're playing at a different venue. That's like a little hack. So anytime you get like a bigger show opportunity, you have to leverage that. You need to get as much content as possible, and that's going to be the stuff you're going to be sharing online. You're going to constantly be replacing stuff on your website. So old photos of you on a bar, like as you start getting bigger gigs, you're going to swap those out for the bigger gig photos. It's constantly evolving so that at any moment, if someone went to your website, they'd be able to be like, okay, I get what level this band is at, because I can sense that too. People send me their band websites or their band social media, and I go on there, and literally in like 2 minutes I can be like, I can tell what level their band is at. And if you think people who've been in the business for 20 or 30 years can't, then I would say you're being pretty naive, because they can spot bands like this. They can tell how professional you are based on how you even interact with them. So there's a whole world going on here, and it's taken me years to realize this. Like, I've been doing the band for 16 years. I've been in music for over 20 years, and you start to recognize patterns. And even just me having been in it for as long as I have, I can tell when someone is like not telling me the truth on something, or they're saying that they're at this level when they're really not. And it's kind of even cringe for me to think, because I was like that. Like, we worked with managers and they would be like, what are you guys up to? And I would say all these big things, like not lying, but I would just like embellish a little bit to try and pitch our band. And I just know they were probably looking at it and be like, yeah, you say you're doing theaters, but like, I just saw you playing at like this tavern like last week. So like, are you actually doing theaters? And they can understand that you're probably doing the odd theater, but really what you're doing is this. So you can't pull a fast one on people. So the takeaway in this episode is this: if you want to start getting bigger gigs that pay really great money, that make you be perceived in a bigger light, you have to start limiting the types of lower end gigs that you take. And that's going to take like some extreme uncomfort to do that. And I get that. I've been that. Like, we've been through that at every stage of this band, so I understand what that is, but there is a way. There's a plan of attack. You have to set a goal and set some deadlines and a roadmap of how you're going to actually achieve that, and you can take your band to the next level, but just know that it's not just going to happen. Like, the people who are actually taking their band to the next level are intentional, whether you realize it or not, whether they're vocal about it or whether they keep their cards close to their chest. There is some kind of plan happening. It could even be in the back of their mind, but they have some goals and they have a North Star that they are steering towards. So you have to set those goals. You're not just going to start playing in theaters, and just know that to play in theaters, you have to have content on your social media. You have to have show listings that align with that people can see you as not a bar band, but a band that's playing on big stages. So I would start attacking small festivals, being creative, convincing people to have you on the bill on this bigger stage at a summer concert series. You might have to level up your band. You might have to level up your image. You might have to level up your website to get those initial bookings. But once you get those bookings, you're going to take the videos and the pictures to leverage that to get those higher paying theaters and performing arts center gigs. From there, it's a matter of just doubling down, because they're going to see you playing at more theaters. So you're going to get more theaters. Then you're going to share content of you playing at bigger crowds, at bigger theaters. Then you're going to get the A-list market, like theaters where you're playing to thousands of people. Like, that's the stage my band is at right now. We're really trying to paint a picture of us playing not just at theaters, but now to like big crowds at theaters. Like, we're going into a town and we're playing to like a sold out show or a near sold out show. That is the image we're trying to portray. And if any of our content doesn't really align with that, it's very difficult for us to want to share it. So to sum this episode up, try taking more gigs and try posting and sharing photos and videos of your band at a next level. Show the world that you aren't a bar band. Paint the narrative that you want people to see. Because as an old manager of ours once told us, it's all about perception. So save yourself the trouble of learning this the hard way, because it could take years. Once you have a solid band and a solid show, set goals for the types of gigs that you want to be performing at, and start getting intentional about the image that you portray both online and offline. You have the power to show people the type of band that you are becoming. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Johnny Fiacconi podcast. This is the first episode, so if you stuck around to the end, I really appreciate you. If you got something out of this episode, please subscribe and please share it with your band or someone who might get something out of it too. See you next time.